Elisabeth felt the weight of her father's debt crushing her, each overdue notice a reminder of how little time she had left. The bills piled up, suffocating her hope, until desperation forced her hand. Her dreams faded, replaced by a single unthinkable choice. The arrangement was clear: 3 nights with a wealthy man, and when her child was born, her mission would end. Elisabeth's hands trembled as she agreed, knowing there was no other way out. Their first meeting was in a shadowy room called Darkly, where Charles, hidden behind a screen, questioned her. He asked about her health, her single status, and why she'd accept such a deal. The questions unsettled her, but she answered honestly. She accepted the job, steeling herself for what lay ahead. For the next 3 days, Elisabeth was placed in a remote hotel, her nerves raw and her resolve tested. On her first night, she finally met Charles face to face, a well-dressed, nervous man who drank to steady himself. He told her they had only 3 days together, and that 10 months after the baby was born, she would receive a large sum if she kept everything secret and never contacted the child. Elisabeth said nothing. A deal was a deal. She turned away and began to undress, determined to see it through. Everyone saw the change in her mood. They began to encourage Elisabeth to let out her frustrations. It was at that moment something shifted between them. That night, Elisabeth finally found the courage to release her innermost desires. A passionate flow of emotion went straight to her heart. It was also a formal farewell to the end of their 3-day journey. Clara. His voice was a low rumble, devoid of warmth. He didn't offer a smile. He didn't need to. 10 months later, Elisabeth gave birth to a baby girl. But before she could even see her, the baby was taken away. The labor had been long and painful. No mother could ever be indifferent to her child. And in the years that followed, Elisabeth missed her daughter more and more. Every year, on her daughter's birthday, Elisabeth would write down her wishes in her sketchbook and whisper, "Happy birthday," from afar. 7 years passed. Finally, Elisabeth discovered the truth about her daughter. She rushed to see her, this time as a governess. From the servants, she learned the little girl's name, Louisa. Louisa was a little girl with a strict and closed personality. She had rejected 3 governesses before, refusing to follow rules. She rarely went out and often hid herself near Pavilion Lake. When Louisa first met Elisabeth, she acted cold and told her to leave, but Elisabeth was not upset. Instead, she became even more determined to stay and care for Louisa as she grew up. The next day, Duke Charles returned. He was shocked to see Elisabeth and asked her to leave immediately. Elisabeth calmly reminded him of the past, how she could never forget the sound of their daughter's laughter or the day she was born. Charles was angry. He believed Elisabeth had broken their contract, but according to the law, she had the right to stay for 1 month. So, to clear things up, he told her the truth. 10 years ago, Charles's wife had an accident and became paralyzed. Charles hired Elisabeth to bear him a child, hoping to continue his family name. But he never expected their lives to be connected again. Louisa was that child, and now Elisabeth wanted to be part of her life. Elisabeth agreed to Louisa's father's request to teach her to study. The way Elisabeth punished Louisa would be the same as the way she treated herself. However, what Elisabeth wanted to teach Louisa was much more than just lessons from books. Louisa had been neglected since she was very young. She grew up without the love of her mother. Her father, Charles, often disappointed her, and because of this, Louisa developed a fearless and stubborn personality. On the first day of class, Louisa refused to study. She also rejected Elisabeth, saying that she was poor and uneducated. When Elisabeth saw this, she remained firm throughout the lesson. No matter how much Louisa cried, Elisabeth did not give in or make her too comfortable. However, Charles could not bear to see his daughter suffer. He became very angry and asked Elisabeth to stop the lesson immediately. However, Elisabeth remained strong and refused to give up. In one story, fire could stop time. When the fire was out, people could do whatever they wanted without rules. After 2 days together, Elisabeth realized that Louisa had been bullied for a long time. Louisa also doesn't know how to understand or trust herself. Elisabeth knows that teaching Louisa will help her heal. But before that, Louisa must learn one important thing. She must learn to listen to and trust Elisabeth first. From that moment on, Louisa began to change. Little by little, her heart began to open. She and Elisabeth, two wounded souls, slowly built a bond of trust, of love, something deeper than words could explain, like a mother and daughter. That very night, Charles came to Elisabeth's room, finally pouring out the heavy secret he had kept for so long. Elisabeth listened. Her own heart moved. She remembered the days when she had secretly admired Charles by the beach, the way his thoughts drifted, tying invisible knots around him. Deep inside, love had been blooming silently all this time. In that small, silent classroom, they faced each other once more. Charles spoke of the past, of the 7 years ago incident. He had tried to bury his feelings, but his heart had never forgotten. Their gazes met, and in that moment, the walls came down. The fire between them, long hidden, finally burns free. Meanwhile, Louisa, so sensitive and pure, feels a quiet joy at seeing her father and Elisabeth together. One cold day, Louisa walks along the shore, when suddenly, the ice cracks. She falls into the frigid water. Without hesitation, Elisabeth jumps in, using her own body to break the ice and save Louisa. The secret is out. Elisabeth is not just a teacher. She is Louisa's biological mother. That night, Elisabeth whispers a promise to her sleeping daughter. And as the seasons change, through every storm, through every rain, Louisa and Elisabeth's bond grows stronger. Because sometimes family is not about blood. It's about love. Charles's father, Lord Clare, had returned home. He was a man who loved pleasure and lavish celebrations. Upon his return, Lord Clare threw a grand Christmas party. Charles had never liked to dance. However, when he was alone with Elisabeth, he could not help himself. He gently embraced Elisabeth and kissed her. From then on, their relationship grew closer. Sometimes Charles dreamed of taking Elisabeth and her child away to start a new life. However, he was a married man with many responsibilities that he could not abandon. He knew that he had to control his feelings and not pursue an impossible dream. Not long after, an unexpected guest, a neighbor, came to the estate. At the same time, Charles's business was in ruins. To pay off his debts, he had no choice but to sell everything. The estate had been his wife's wedding gift, but over the past 10 years, she had become distant and degenerate. The mansion had become like a prison for everyone. Charles loved his wife, but he never really asked himself if he wanted to live like this. For 10 years, he had lied to himself, perhaps even hurting her without realizing it. Then, in his desperation, Charles opened all the doors and windows, letting in the cold night air. He exposed his wife's body to the cold wind, but the cold night took his life quickly, like a sharp knife. Elisabeth was not directly involved in what happened, but deep down, she knew that Charles was involved. One night, Louisa went into Elisabeth's room. There she stumbled upon Elisabeth's picture book. At that moment, she realized the truth. Elisabeth was her biological mother. Confused, Louisa asked why Elisabeth had given her away. Elisabeth admitted that she had sold Louisa for £500. Instead of feeling angry, Louisa smiled and said that she was glad that Elisabeth had made so much money for her. In the end, they forgave each other. Together, the family left the old house in a horse-drawn carriage, ready to start a new life. This is the end of the film Firelight. Life is full of unexpected changes. When the unexpected happens, it takes time to adjust, to heal, and to face our true feelings. The journey is painful, but we must be honest with ourselves. We must hold on to the people and opportunities that help us grow and heal. Only then can we truly let go of our pain. Time can heal everything, but only if we are willing to let go of the past. If we continue to hold on to old wounds, we only create more suffering. If we continue to hold on to old wounds, we only create more suffering. Fortunately, they met a strong and loving woman like Elisabeth. Through her love, they were finally able to break free from their painful past and start anew. Life is not about escaping the pain. It's about facing it, healing from it, and growing stronger. In Firelight, even after betrayal, loss, and guilt, They found a way to forgive and start again. Stay strong, trust the journey, and believe that better days are coming.